And we're back. Welcome to Invisible Tears. Today, myself, Jane, and Amanda, my co-host, we're going to talk about a unsolved case of a body that was found. She was murdered. Angela C. Thomas. It's a cold case out of Maine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so we're going to talk some about that. Now, there's not a whole lot of information. And I know it's because of a few reasons. Maine doesn't give out any information.
Yeah, like ever.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even after 30, 40 years, they just refuse to give out information.
Yeah, so Angela's case first came on our radar when we were actually covering Jessica Briggs' case. And she was season 4, episode 11 that we covered. And it stuck with me. And there was only one line in an article that we read about Jessica's case. And it was because it was a quote from Philpin. So that's why we tried to dig in as much as we could. But here's what we know on Angela's case. So Angela was born Monday, January 10th, 1972 in Brunswick, Maine. Now, it was virtually impossible to dig up anything about Angela in regards to her personality or how she really was in life. And we always like to try and cover that here on Invisible Tears, but we just wanted to call that out, that there was very, very little information on Angela's actual life.
So the details we were able to dig up was that she was focused on being a mother at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
Very young age.
Yeah.
Angela had a daughter named Kayla around the age of 15, 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She dropped out of school at that time. She was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Angela's mother, Ashley, helped her with Kayla, noting that Angela was a good mother until she fell into the wrong crowd. Angela became addicted to cocaine and resorted to prostitution to pay for her habit, to pay for her addiction. Angela left Kayla in the care of her mother, Ashley. During this time, she didn't come around often, and her mother notes that she knew her daughter didn't want her to see her like that, drug addicted. But she did call frequently to check up on Kayla, her daughter. In February of 1990, Angela was arrested for drug trafficking cocaine and had served 5 months in jail before being acquitted of the crime. Angela's mother, Ashley, said she made her daughter hard, quote unquote, and she thought jail made her daughter's situation worse. After being released, Angela tried her hardest to get clean and attended a detox program at the Fellowship House in Lewiston, Maine. Despite her efforts, she unfortunately fell back into her old ways, went back to the streets. She became very distant from her mother, who did go looking for her daughter, but could easily tell her daughter was basically running away from her. She did not want to be found in the condition she was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Angela was last seen entering apartment 2A at 73 Knox Street in Lewiston, Maine on September 22nd, 1990. Allegedly, she was with 2 other individuals. 5 days later, on September 27th, a Central Maine power worker was cleaning out a spot in the dam with a rake where the Androscoggin River flowed into Brunswick and made the discovery of Angela's body. She was wrapped in a sleeping bag, zipped up to her neck. After the body was identified as 18-year-old Angela, the cause of death was never released to the public. Many rumors started circulating. Angela's mother, Ashley, publicly stated that her daughter was beaten so badly that her skull was caved in. Ashley was also very vocal about not believing that police cared or were doing enough to investigate her daughter's murder.
One of the rumors circulating around town was that Angela had swallowed small baggies of drugs, and when she was unable to throw them up, her stomach was cut open to retrieve them. Now, obviously, this is a rumor and hasn't been verified. However, this rumor caught our attention.
Yep.
We know nothing about her injuries or causes of death because police have never released this information publicly. But something involved with this murder would have eluded John Philpin, which was the criminal profiler of the Connecticut River Valley serial killer cases, to say that this case should be looked at from the possibility it could be a serial killer.
Yeah.
We know the victims of the Connecticut River Valley serial killer from those that were found early enough were eviscerated.
Yep.
Again, not sure if this is the piece that may have caught John Philpin's attention, just speculating. I'm sure that John Philpin may have had access to information that was not public.
Yeah.
Another rumor that was circulating around town was that Angela got caught up in the drug turf war, and she even stole some cocaine from someone and was killed over it. The police say they were keeping the cause of death private to protect the integrity of the case, further noting that this would be information only the killer would know. Well, I can understand the approach initially.
Yeah.
But it's been over 30 years now with no updates.
Yep.
None.
Zero. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. What updates are there on Angela's case? There's absolutely nothing. And in fact, the most detail we could find on Angela's case actually came from a post that was compiled 4 years ago on Reddit by someone with the username Enigma Springs. Enigma Springs, you did some great work if you're listening. They did a really great job at compiling the only information that is publicly out there about this case. It's the only place where I found a note, too, about any possible suspects or persons of interest. They referenced an interactive map on the Portland Press Herald's website that had a small paragraph on Angela's murder. And apparently in this paragraph, it was noted that, quote, one suspect was deported to Venezuela on May 3rd, 1991, and the other suspect was last seen in Massachusetts. When I traced this link that they had in this post, I was able to verify that the information had previously existed, but there was a big note on the website that information on the website was no longer supported. So I couldn't actually pull up the paragraph to verify that quote. There's no reason why I would suspect that the quote wouldn't have been originally there, though. Again, this was 4 years ago that this post was done. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. And now back to our episode. Further on this Reddit post, I found a response from someone who prefers to be called Casey. They claimed they were actually friends with Angela during this time, and they consistently referenced her as Angie. They were the same age, they hung around with the same people, knew the same drug dens and apartments, and both were involved in prostitution to fuel their drug addictions. They even used to switch clothing. And since they both had minimal clothing that they owned, it was common for them to actually switch outfits when they were going out and looking for other customers on the streets. Now, this statement that Casey put on Reddit would actually explain Angela's mother, Ashley's claim that the clothing that she was found in was not her daughter's, which she actually put in when she was interviewed in an article. She actually claimed that. On this post, also, Casey explained that she had seen Angie go off with a scary-looking, dark-haired man, and that was the last time she ever saw her. Casey also explained that she had heard the rumor on the streets that Angie was killed for robbing a stash of cocaine that wasn't hers. So, regardless of all the rumors, absolutely zero movement has happened on this case.
Right after Angie was murdered, her daughter Kayla was placed in the home of Kayla's father's sister by Kayla's father. Angie's mother, Ashley, not only lost her daughter, she lost her granddaughter too. So sad.
So absolutely heartbreaking.
So we couldn't find an obituary on Angie anywhere. We also could not find an obituary on Angie's mother, Ashley, as it appears that she passed away February 17th, 2014. This was only found again by username Enigma Springs.
Enigma Springs on Reddit. And that was actually 2004.
2004.
Yep.
She found this information in the obituary of Shirley Labby, who was Ashley's mother and Angie's grandmother.
Yeah. It was very odd to not even be able to find an obituary about Angie or Angela, as we're speaking about, or even her mother. Very odd. But I'm positive that the obituary that this sleuth, Enigma Springs, was able to pull out for Shirley Labby was Ashley's mother and Angie's grandmother, because it actually essentially listed it at the bottom of the obituary. So we have a link for that and a link for all of the resources that we pulled from in the description notes. So it appears that the only movement that will happen on this case will be from people coming forward with what they know. I'm not sure if Angie has any advocates left that are still alive.
So we don't know if she had siblings.
Nope.
We don't know about her father.
Nope. Literally zero.
We just don't know anything about Angie.
Yeah. Nope. Nothing about Angie. And I find it really sad too that her mother died with no answers, back in 2004. There was a really long article that was done up in Maine where they interviewed her mother. And that's where quite a few of these details actually came out. There was a picture of her mother holding a, framed picture of Angie and just simply stating that she was getting the runaround from the police. She would call them. They would never call her back. All she was simply asking for, even if there wasn't an update, she just wanted to be acknowledged. And she really felt that based off of how they viewed Angie and, what she was possibly involved with, she really felt like, well, they're not investigating then. She was just, a piece of, trash or whatever in their eyes. That was really what she was feeling.
How she felt. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I if I was her mother, I'd feel the same way, that all these law enforcement authorities, all they see her past,
Mm-hmm.
and see that she was involved with drugs and she was involved in prostitution. So we're not going to put a whole lot of resources into trying to solve her murder. That's just, it's frustrating and it's sad because she was still a person.
Absolutely.
And she was living her life, and maybe you don't agree with the way she lived her life and the choices that she made. She certainly did not deserve to be murdered.
Yep.
And her mother deserved answers.
Mm-hmm.
And
So does her daughter.
exactly.
I mean, her daughter was
Exactly.
only 2 when she was murdered. And so, I mean, just such an absolutely heartbreaking story there too. Angie was taken so young. She had an extremely young daughter. Her mom lost everything when she was murdered. And so regardless of whatever the situation was or the circumstances were that surrounded her murder, she deserves to be talked about. Her
Yeah,
case
exactly.
deserves to be investigated. Her case deserves to be out there. And we are the first podcast to do a story or to talk about her case. I found that too.
Again, another one.
Yep. So, and I mean, I understand it. I mean, we're going to have quite a few resources, links in this episode. But I mean, that is the only pieces of information that are out there. It was really hard to find any sort of information. So I understand from a content perspective, but not, but that's not going to deter us from putting a case out there.
I mean, let's not forget her case is still unsolved.
Exactly.
Somebody knows something. All they need to do is come forward and say something.
Yep.
You know, her case is still unsolved.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. And she should not be forgotten.
Not at all.
Because if we forget, authorities forget. She's put in a file, put in a cabinet, and never investigated.
Exactly.
And that's just wrong. And that's why we're here, to make sure that that cabinet door does not get opened and a file gets put into it and gets shut. Yeah. We need to make sure that these unsolved cases are never forgotten.
Yeah.
They should never be forgotten.
And maybe now that we're trying to shed some light and a little bit of visibility and get this out there and get people remembering this case in case they've forgotten or maybe never even heard of it, that whole stance that the police took about not releasing her cause of death because it was so specific to the information that, her killer would have known. Hey, well, there's been no movement on the case and it's been over 30 years. Why don't you release it now?
Yeah.
Why don't you, do something? Give an update. Do a news conference. Hey, this is a, 30-year plus cold case. And, we're still looking for tips. We're still looking for answers. Contact us. It's been so many years. Now's the time. So yeah, I mean, if you don't, we're gonna put Maine's address on the website. Yep.
Or on the.
Yep. In the show notes.
Yep. And you have our information. If you want to, send information to us, we can definitely make sure the right people get the information. Yeah. If you know something, say something.
Always.
Thank you for listening to Invisible Tears.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Invisible Tears. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast to hear all future episodes. Click into our link tree too in the episode description to find and follow us on all our social medias. And it also links to our website, invisible-tears.com, where you can keep current on any events that may be coming up, read more about Jane and the team, and read more about all the Connecticut River Valley unsolved cases. Evil may exist in this world, but we will not let it win. See you next episode.